Shalom, our dear friends, and welcome to Parasha Chukat, a parasha which is hard to understand. King Solomon, who was the smartest person according to us, says, I read all Torah, I understood it, but I did not understand this law. What is this law says that is so hard to understand? It says that you take the red cow, you slaughter them, and you burn them, and its ashes will purify those who are not clean. Okay, that's fine. But it says something amazing. It says, but in this process, those people who prepared this red cow shall become unclean. And this is what King Solomon has a problem with. A lot of commentaries has problem with. Everyone tries to understand it, but they say, everyone says this is one of those laws in Torah that has no answer. For example, we know that when it says don't kill, it's a very good law, we all understand. But when it says something like this, that is really, we don't see an exact reason for it, is very hard to understand. So before we get to why Torah come and say something like that, which is called Chukat, means a law which you really don't understand, is hard to understand the reason, I first want to express my personal opinion that what is this law tries to say, and that is really essence of love. And we see parents do that all the time. Parents always do something that, it's not fun, it is hard, and it makes you, in a way, unclean, but you, in this process, you make another person clean, which is the children. And parents always love to do this sort of a thing. Of course, the most mundane thing is changing the diaper. I always thought that I would never want to change diaper, but when it came to my kids, I realized, wow, it's such a great mitzvah you could do. And there are many things that parents do all the time to uplift their kids, and always the lovers do that for their love. And if we can all become like this, adopt it as a way that there are sometimes things which are hard for us, but if we do that, it will be good for other people. I have some time I set aside to see some people. Typically on Sundays, there was one particular person came to see me, and her story was so sad. For 3 hours, she was telling me all about that, and I was just hoping it's going to end. And it was really tragic life that she's experienced it, and we're trying to find meaning and purpose through that. And then after 3 hours she left, and I saw as she was getting into the car that there was a big smile. It was like a big load was lifted out of her shoulder. But for 3 days I was really down and just questioning everything in life and why she had experienced all this. So you see, sometimes you go out there to do something for someone and you get not clean and you get kind of depressed, but at the end of the day, this gives meaning and purpose to our life, and at the end of the day, I think this becomes source of happiness for us. But when we look at this big parasha, it does not make sense why this parasha is right between all these great stories that we've been reading and experiencing every week, and now suddenly we see something which is chukat, something we don't understand. This parasha should have been in Vaikra, not between all these stories that we see how Hashem was disrespected for the man he was sending, then how Moshe was disrespected, how we saw how the land of Israel was disrespected, and we saw last week that how there was revolution, uprising against Moshe last week, and Moshe and his whole system of Torah was challenged. So at the middle of all this, how is it that Torah comes to talk about this? And you see that again next week we're going to go to the nice stories of Balak, Pinchas, and all of that. So the question, which really begs to be questioned, is why is it that this big parasha that is about the laws that we don't understand come to be right at the middle of all these stories? And I want to submit to you that it is a great, great wisdom. And it's exactly related to them, because what was it? The people thought that, you know what, this man is not good, and disrespected. Some people disrespected Moshe, and every one of them, if you and I would talk to them, they had very logical reason. I promise you, if you would have sit down and talked to them, every one of them had a great, great reason which appeared to be logical. And then this week Parasha comes to give an amazing wisdom to everyone. That every time that you feel like you are so logical and you think you have everything, stop. Maybe you don't have. There's a great wisdom above your logic. We know that Torah is more logical than any other religion. It is so logical that even doesn't talk about life after death, about hell and heaven. All of these things is not mentioned in Torah because it's a book of logics. But then it comes to say, do not always trust your logic, because your logic can be fraud. Why? Because every one of us have some motivation, some conscious reason, some payoff that we even might not know. But this payoff comes and create a logic, and we say it's true, and we go and follow that. I remember in 1978, when the Islamic Revolution was happening in Iran, I was here among my Muslim friends, and the euphoria that this man, Mr. Khomeini, is coming to Iran, and he was saying that food will be free, gas will be free, education will be free, Iran will thrive and become the greatest country in the world. What was his argument? His argument was that 9% of all the world mineral and gas are in Iran, while there is only 1% of the people live in Iran. So this is all logic. But if you put two and two together, if somebody would come and really was for people, not only there would be a great democracy, but also great prosperity. And this is what everyone was thinking. And even on that time, I was saying, yeah, everything he says is so logical. He should be given an opportunity to try that. But what happened? An absolute misery. Why? Why was it that everything sounds good, but became such a horrible thing? One thing. Personal logic was in there. They were saying everything what they're saying, it seemed like was the right thing. But you know what was behind it that you and I didn't know? They were saying that all for personal gain. When your personal gain comes in and drives your action, and everything is because there's a hidden personal thing, and it's not for the people, it's not for the good of the people, then these things happen. And for example, they came in when the Islamic Revolution happened. What did they do? They came in, the first thing that they said is that Islamic Revolution was such a great movement. We need to create Pasdaran. Pasdaran, the revolutionary guards that guard this great revolution. Again, on the surface, it sounds like a very logical thing to do. But what did they do, the revolutionary guard? They took over the entire economy of Iran, all the big businesses. I'm not talking about the small businesses, small people could do what they were doing, but all the big businesses they took in the name of let's nationalize these businesses so that it serve people. Again, the name is good, but it was all for personal thing. And we saw how they killed that small Chi, who was one of the biggest supporters of the government single-handedly. He financed the revolution. But when it was not good for them and they wanted his money, they killed him. We saw how they killed in our home city of Isfahan a man, a great man that created so much industry and people loved him. Kedushin, they called him. And we know in Tehran, they killed other Jewish leaders. And the whole thing was, what can I take for myself? So they took the logic and they sold it to us as good for all, but it was only for themselves. By the way, this was not limited to them. Every time that there is a tyrants of history, every time that the monarchs come and people want to have the absolute power, they all say beautiful things like that. When I was in college, I studied a lot about Marx, Hegel, and the revolution in Russia, all the beautiful things that they say, how Mao was talking about this creating absolute beautiful utopia in China, and people were worshiping him, and what a calamity all of them created. Even Trotsky, created Trotsky, that one of the group in Russia, revolutionary people. I was reading his book, and it was so beautiful that he was saying that the world will be so utopian, people will be so loving, brotherly, living together, that money doesn't matter anymore. And they will build the restrooms door out of gold, because gold has no value. So Torah is coming to tell us that, you know what? Check your motivation. If you have an evil motivation, you could get the logic and make logical argument that is not going to work at the end of the day. And this beautiful, beautiful Parasha Chukas is coming to teach us an amazing thing. Check your logic. And be like in Talmud, that in Talmud there's so much discussion. Discussion is very welcome in Judaism. Everything is based on discussion for the best to come out. But there is one thing. There is one thing that all the people who are in Talmud, they have common ground. Nobody is trying to prove what is right or someone else is wrong. If such ideology is there, they don't belong in Talmud. The entire discussion is find the truth, discover HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shabbat Shalom.